I'm Emily Dimitrakopoulos. In today's program, we are focusing on inclusive curriculum. But what is it? How's inclusive curriculum different from what's been taught in classes in the past? Traditionally and historically, teaching's been directed to middle-class Anglo-Saxon males. Such a curriculum has excluded many groups in our schools, more especially the girls. This means that girls are less likely to acknowledge their skills and abilities. Generally, they demonstrate lower self-esteem and many act as if they're outsiders in the classroom. Inclusive curriculum is a process which addresses these key elements. What does this mean to teachers, and how can they change their classrooms to become effective learning environments for all students? To find some answers to these types of questions, I'll be talking with a group of teachers. Mary McGregor from a state primary school, Robin Sinclair from a secondary technical school, and Barbara Peachy from a secondary high school. Welcome to TV Ed. As a primary teacher myself, I've seen that girls have different interests to boys. How can we ensure that girls' interests are not ignored? Barb, what do you think are the important things you have to address when planning for the teaching of girls?
What I'm particularly interested in is looking at the degree of access that girls have to the learning process. And this goes beyond formal things like timetabling and the courses that are offered, and it goes further into the classroom. I suppose we could say that what we're really looking for is the degree of participation that the girls are going to be involved in, how ready they are to ask questions, to find out exactly what they know and what they don't know in order to make the best of their opportunities. To participate in anything, you need lots of self-confidence and self-assurance.
Would you agree with what Barb said, Robin?
Yes, I do agree. And one of the ways of making girls feel confident about themselves is to make them competent in a wide range of skills. Today, I think that the community in schools expects students to come through schools with a wide range of skills, not just those of communication. Barbara mentioned about encouraging girls to participate, and I think as teachers we must be aware what sort of encouragement we need to give to girls to get them to participate in the sorts of activities that schools provide. Schools provide a wide range of activities, both within and outside the classroom. Some of these skills, I believe, can be gained through using technology. We expect girls now to gain the skills with machinery, with technical equipment, as well as perform in front of equipment. We like to see girls achieving success in physical education. It may be structured physical education classes, or it may be just in the playground. It's very important to ensure that girls have the same amount of space to be able to participate in physical activities. Also, equipment, use of equipment is really important. This goes also for within the classroom. For example, maths classes, we must ensure that it's not always the boys who grab the equipment first, but that in fact girls do get equal share of equipment. I think one of the important things is also that we should recognise that in some cases a single-sex setting is very important to make girls feel that they can achieve in a wide range of skills. Schools mustn't overlook the fact that positive experiences both within the classroom and outside the classroom are really important for girls.
Yes, what Robin said about both inside and outside the classroom I think is quite important, because schools really are more than just the classrooms themselves. A tremendous amount of decisions are being made in schools now that are actually centred around students' opinions. Since the ministerial papers came out, there's been an incredible influx of students into decision-making bodies, and I think it's really important that girls' voices be heard. We need to recognise that girls' opinions and experiences are very valuable assets in coming at reasoned conclusions. I think girls have to be empowered to act even at the classroom negotiation level, at SRC levels, and further than that, ministerial and regional levels.
Indeed, and it is for this reason that we took the TV Ed crew out to interview Rachel Callahan, who's a student representative on a regional board, to find out what it's like being a girl on a regional board.
I was interested in being on the board because I thought it was a really good opportunity for students to finally have a say in the higher decision-making structures in the education system. And since it was a new thing, I thought, well, if students want to have a presence, then we've got to do something positive with the opportunity we had. And so I got interested through my school council, and I heard about it there, went to the regional network meeting, and it kind of all gelled together for me, and I was elected, luckily. However, it was interesting to note that I was the only girl nominated out of 5 boys. Yeah, being on the board is really a horrific experience when you first start, especially because it was a new thing then. They had no support structures, the gender balance was right out, and then cultural, ethnic balance, everything, and even the students. There's only 2 students compared to about 27 adults. So it was a really bad experience to start with, especially when you go in and you don't know anything about educational procedure. You don't know what the department does, the various things. You haven't even heard about the issues that are being brought up, so it was really bad. However, now, after being on it about 1.5 years, I'm really used to it and I've learnt a lot, so I'm coping well at the moment. Theoretically, to give proper support to the students on regional boards, they should be giving briefing sessions before the regional board to go through all the reams of paper that you get to read, and things like that. However, it's really hard to coordinate things like that because people haven't got the time. However, it should be done, and the Ministerial Working Party is going to do something about that.
Rachel is a secondary student, Mary, but as a primary teacher, how do you go about encouraging girls to have a go?
As teachers, we've got to make sure that we provide supportive environment that allows the students to aim for high achievement at their own level and their own pace, but also allows for students to make mistakes and then be still willing to keep trying. And also within that allows the students to learn from one another. It's not good for students to be isolated from each other, so if they're learning from one another, that's really supportive for each other. A classroom also must be not competitive, less competitive, where there's no winners and losers, where a student who maybe has a shaky self-image might still be willing to have a go at particular activities. We also should encourage all students to participate. A cooperative classroom is the best sort of classroom to encourage self-esteem. Research has shown in the past that often girls see themselves as the losers in the classroom, and not only the girls seeing themselves as losers, but also others see themselves as losers, such as administrators and parents and teachers. And therefore we must make sure that we encourage all students to participate, especially the girls.
It is important to talk about encouraging girls to feel confident enough to be active in the classroom, but what about interest? Surely we have to look at content. Girls need to see that what they are learning as being relevant to their lives. Too many people see girls and boys as being the same. That's not my idea of providing for equal outcomes. We can't deny that through socialisation, girls have a different view of the world. Girls develop different interests from boys. And if we treat girls and boys as being exactly the same, what tends to happen is that girls' experiences and interests are at best ignored or, well, really totally ignored. Don't you think, Mary, that learning would be a lot easier for all students if we ensured that the content we present includes all students in the classroom?
Often resources and texts in classrooms show a biased way of life. It would be not unreasonable to see that girls think that women have really had nothing to do in the development of society because they're not included in the texts and resources often. And in fact, probably a lot of people would think that. We've got to make sure that those texts are inclusive of women. How often do women not applauded for their roles in society in science texts, maths texts, history texts? And what we need to do is to find alternative ways to ensure that girls are included in the texts and that they can express their ideas of what gets learned, what gets taught and what they want to learn.
And part of this is making learning relevant to girls. For example, at one school, as part of the social studies program, students decided to interview their mothers.
Interviews to find out what our mothers' lives were like before our lives, you know, and we sort of compared our mothers' lives to our lives now. And we had to ask our mothers questions and stuff and write the book down as if it was our mother talking, or sometimes some of us wrote it as we were talking and then changed to our mother and stuff like that.
And it was basically really to learn because we wanted to know about the lives of our mothers, our parents, what things they went through and how different their life was compared to today's life. And that way it made people more aware of the things their parents went through, and they realised more why they're not allowed to go out and all things like this. It made them realise more things, and I think that's why we wanted to do it. We just want to learn about people in the era when our parents were around. And it was a great learning experience. Everybody enjoyed making it. They all loved it, and we had a launch for it, and they all brought their mums and they had tea and coffee and they talked about the book, and everybody was really proud. It was a great learning experience. First of all, we sat in the classroom and the teacher went over with us the questions that we thought were more appropriate. And so we just wrote down questions, and then we went home and we discussed it with our parents, with our mother. And we got a note first of all saying, would our parents like to be part, would our mother like to be part of making a book? So, and then our mother signed it and said yes, they'd love to be part of something like this, you know. And we got back to school and then we discussed how our parents felt, and then we went back and we either got a tape or someone wrote it all down, or you wrote it all down, and we asked our parents these questions, and if they weren't talking, we just squeeze it all out of them and say, tell us more, you know. And they really were deep down, so they said, oh, I don't want to be part of this, you know. People are going to say, oh no, you know, the story's funny, but really though you could tell that they wanted to do something like this.
It's important to encourage students to use their own language, to write, to talk, to tell stories, and to use a variety of mediums. Mary, how do you go about doing this in a primary school?
One of the areas that seems to meet the criteria of inclusive curriculum is the contract theme work that is operating in the school that I teach at. And the process in this is that the children select areas of study, and from that area of study it's mainly their own interests, and then they formulate their questions. And after they've formulated their questions, they research the topic. And following the researching of the topic, they record their information either on wall charts or tapes or film strips, or in a written form. And through this process is conferencing developing with the teacher. On the completion of their work, they present the information to the class, who are encouraged to ask questions of the presenters and be involved in that presentation. The last stage of this is a self-assessment, where the students have a look at their own work in terms of the presentation and what they got out of that topic. And as you can see from this, there's a wide range of skills that the students are learning, and also developing their own self-esteem.
We've talked about self-esteem and making the learnings relevant to students, but when it comes to planning for classes, Barbara, what should teachers keep in mind?
I suppose the most persistent thing you must keep in the back of your mind is the sort of outcome you're looking for. But of course you can't ignore things like the content and method that you use. You normally define your content by the topic that you choose. I found that over the years teaching science, that a large proportion of the resources, including the texts that I've had to use, have very much ignored the people element in the whole thing. In the class that I'm running at the moment, we're working on a fairly traditional topic of machines. I've just started the lesson in the normal way, no modifications whatsoever. The students are encouraged to participate as actively as possible, including some of the hearing impaired students that we've got at the school too. In exemplifying the machines, the simple machines, the wheel and axle, pulley, incline plane and lever, we performed experiments where the students could make observations on some of the behaviour of machines. They were required to write down their notes all the time. This is where, from this point on, basically we stopped. The next stage, one would assume, would be to go on to calculate mechanical advantage. But a lot of kids balked at that, and so I moved quickly into the next phase. And here we can see some of the projects that the students are working on, and they were required to design or invent machines made from the 4 simple machines we'd studied in order to solve a problem to make life easier for people. The students selected the problems they worked on themselves. One additional thing, when exemplifying the machines, I was pretty careful to avoid heavy industry kinds of machinery, to indicate to the students that their parents, their whole household themselves, use machines constantly. It's trying to reduce science down to common everyday stuff instead of unapproachable things, things that you only read about in textbooks and so forth. The outcome that I'd planned for with my students was for a considerable amount of writing, like in an engineering project where they had a written submission which they put in. Also the drawings that they produced. Now they were the tangible outcomes that I'd planned for. The less tangible outcomes, which, not denying that the first lot of outcomes were quite successful, the next lot, which were looking for cooperation, students learning how to work together in order to solve common problems. This I found the most pleasing aspect of the whole plan. I looked at the content. I modified content because the resources available to me were not good enough. The methodology was designed to promote active participation and cooperation amongst all the students, solving their problems together. And the outcomes, I think, were more than pleasing.
Sounds good. Well, another aspect of inclusive curriculum is that it affirms the fact that girls can do everything. And part of that is the provision of appropriate role models. Robin, do you see role models as being important?
Yes, I do. I don't see any point saying that girls can do anything if you don't give girls, female students, within our schools working models. And because schools are part of our society, what is a very common occurrence in some co-ed schools is that you find that the administration will be all male and the majority of teaching staff will be female. Now this gives a very powerful image to all students, both males and females, that power authority is linked with males and service is linked with females. The Ministry of Education is taking steps to redress any imbalance in that area, and I believe there have been imbalances in that area. Within the classroom, it's another matter. In some technical schools in Victoria, a way in which girls have been encouraged to take on the non-traditional prac studies is to provide a female staff member in the classroom. That female teacher may be the main teacher, or they may be a support teacher. Girls often find it easy to come to a female staff member who's probably learning along with them, and so they can ask questions of an adult figure but still feel that they're asking someone who's going through the same process. In maths science, we often forget, because it's not termed traditional male subject, there's a commonly held view that majority of girls will not succeed in maths, and having female maths staff in the classroom is a good message to girls that yes, girls can achieve in the two subjects of maths and science. We must ensure that schools do not restrict girls by the curriculum. By that I mean we must ensure that girls do participate, do enrol for a wide range of subjects, those that have been seen to be the male subjects traditionally, those that have been seen to be the sciences. If we make sure that girls do enrol and participate equally in these subjects, then of course we don't start to restrict their career choices. And this is an area I'm very concerned about. If you make certain careers with prerequisites, then you obviously lock out a whole range of students, and unfortunately very often it happens to be girls. Schools do have a duty to make sure that girls are counselled in career structures, and it's not just the careers teacher. I believe it's the duty of almost every staff member within a school. We do need to ensure that girls are encouraged in the non-traditional careers as well as the traditionally female careers.
Schools, especially co-educational schools, do mirror society. So it's important to make sure that we give girls the support that they find necessary for them to be able to express themselves, to ask questions, to use the equipment available, and to use space. And part of this support is to ensure that girls are free from harassment at school.
Originally a complaint was, I received it through a school, and the girls and boys in the room felt that just from, say, this particular teacher, an example, that they were very uncomfortable in the class. They couldn't learn to the best advantage because they felt intimidated. It was a really depressing situation for the students in that particular class, and so as a result from that, I took the problem to the regional network, and there we decided that really students don't have anywhere to go with their problems. Say sexual harassment problems, like what do you do, where do you go? So we thought the best thing, if we had a grievance procedure for particularly aimed at students, however it could be for teachers as well. So we got that up at the student network, a motion was passed, and so I prepared a paper and presented to the regional board to get a sexual harassment working party, especially up to look at making up a grievance procedure. Students can't learn effectively in a class when they're under that kind of pressure. There's enough pressure in school life in a classroom with all the social relationships and so forth in the classroom without having an added one from the teacher, say through sexual harassment, whether it be verbal or physical. It's just too much for students to cope with.
We've been talking about a way of offering real choices and opportunities for girls in schools. What we need to look at in schools is that we offer real access for girls by developing their confidence and self-esteem, that we employ special strategies to ensure success for girls, and that we make learning relevant, and that we use the skills and experiences that girls bring into the classroom and build from that base. Inclusive curriculum is a way of involving all students, a way of developing their personal skills and potential so that all students, both male and female, are able to make informed choices about what they do in life. Thank you for being with us today, Mary McGregor, Robin Sinclair and Barbara Peachy. In closing, let's look at a girls' band from Williamstown High School proving that girls can do anything.
Victorian schools can obtain a copy of this program by sending a blank cassette and a dubbing request form to the Videotape Dubbing Service, Curriculum Branch 234, Queensbury Street in Carlton, 3053. Telephone inquiries on 03 341 4421. Interstate school inquiries 03 628 2113.